The midnight chimes of the grandfather clock echoed through the marble halls of Manhattan's most exclusive residential tower. Jake Morrison pushed his industrial mop bucket across the gleaming lobby floor, careful not to disturb the sleeping millionaires 30 floors above. The harsh fluorescent lights cast long shadows as he worked, his movements efficient from years of practice. At 35, Jake's calloused hands told the story of a man who had traded dreams for survival. The lines around his eyes had deepened this past year, etched by worry rather than age. His broad shoulders, once proud in a different life, now carried an invisible weight that made them slump when no one was watching. "Daddy's almost done, sweetheart," he whispered into his phone, propped against the janitor's bar. On the screen, 7-year-old Lily waved from her hospital bed, her pale face illuminated by the glow of monitors tracking her failing heart. Her auburn hair, once wild and full of life, now lay limp against the sterile white pillowcase. "I'm not tired," Lily insisted, though her eyelids drooped. The medications they had her on made her drowsy, but she fought sleep like it was her personal enemy. "Tell me about the princess who lives in the tower again." Jake smiled, though his heart ached. This story had become their ritual during his nighted shifts. "Well, they say she lives on the top floor, in a palace made of glass and gold. She has everything anyone could ever want, but—" The elevator chimed unexpectedly, startling him. At this hour, the building was supposed to be empty, except for security. Jake quickly ended the video call, straightening his uniform as the door slid open. Madison Rothschild stumbled out. In his 2 years working the building, Jake had never seen her like this. The 26-year-old heiress, usually composed in designer suits and perfect makeup, looked devastated. Her emerald evening gown was wrinkled, her auburn hair disheveled, and tears had carved rivers through her foundation. Even in disarray, she carried herself with the unmistakable poise of old money, shoulders back, chin high, as if daring the world to comment on her appearance. "Miss Rothschild?" Jake abandoned his mop, concern overriding protocol. "Are you all right? Should I call security?" She laughed, a broken sound that echoed in the empty lobby. "Security can't fix this." Madison swayed, catching herself against the wall. "Nothing can fix this except—" Her green eyes suddenly focused on him with laser intensity. "You're Jake, right? The night janitor?" "Yes, ma'am." He kept his distance, aware of the vast social gulf between them. "Can I call someone for you? Your driver?" "I fired him. Fired everyone." She took a shaky step forward. "Do you know what my grandfather did tonight at my birthday party?" Jake shook his head, increasingly uncomfortable. The lives of the ultra-wealthy weren't his concern. He had enough problems of his own. "He changed his will." Madison's voice cracked. $20 billion. My entire inheritance, my company, my future, gone. Unless I meet his ridiculous condition. She reached into her designer clutch, pulling out a crumpled document. "I have to be married by noon tomorrow." "Married?" Jake couldn't keep the disbelief from his voice. "Can you believe it? The old bastard thinks I'm too focused on work, too cold, too much like him." Another broken laugh. "Joke's on him. I am exactly like him." Jake shifted uncomfortably. "I'm sorry, Miss Rothschild. That must be—" "You're married, aren't you?" She interrupted, eyes narrowing as she noticed his bare ring finger. "No, wait, you're that single dad. Your daughter's sick." His spine stiffened. "How do you— I own the building, Jake. I know everyone who works here." Madison stepped closer, and he caught the scent of expensive perfume mixed with champagne. "She needs surgery, doesn't she? Experimental treatment not covered by insurance." "That's private," Jake said coldly, moving back to his cart. "If you'll excuse me, I have work to finish." $200,000. He froze, hand on the mop handle. "The surgery cost $200,000. Madison continued, her voice steadier now, calculating. "I looked into it after the building's holiday fundraiser. You've raised what, 12,000? At this rate, your daughter will be dead before you collect enough." "Don't." The word came out as a growl. "Don't you dare." "I'm trying to help you." Madison pulled out her checkbook, designer pen poised. "Marry me tomorrow, just for one day. We'll annul it immediately after I sign the inheritance papers. 24 hours and your daughter gets her surgery." Jake's mind raced. Every instinct screamed danger, but Lily's pale face flashed before his eyes. The doctors had given her 6 months at most without the treatment. This is insane. This is business, Madison corrected, writing the check with swift strokes. 200,000 up front, another 50,000 after the annulment. You save your daughter, I save my company, everyone wins. Why me? Jake demanded. You could have any man in Manhattan. Because you're safe. She held out the check and he saw his daughter's name on the memo line. You're not after my money or connections. You just want to save your little girl. That makes you the only man in this city I can trust. Jake stared at the check. 200,000. Lily's life written in neat blue ink. What's the catch? There's always a catch with you people. Madison's smile was sharp as crystal. The catch is my grandfather. William Rothschild didn't build an empire by playing fair. He'll test us, investigate us, try to prove the marriage is fake. We'll need to be convincing. I don't even own a suit. I'll handle everything. Clothes, story, documentation. She stepped closer and Jake noticed she was trembling despite her confident tone. Please, I know I seem like just another spoiled heiress to you, but this company is my life. I've worked 18-hour days since I was 16 to prove I deserve it. I won't let him take it away because I refuse to play his games. Jake thought about Lily, about the way she'd stopped talking about the future lately, as if she knew she might not have one. He thought about the medical bills piling up in his apartment, the second and third jobs he'd taken, the exhaustion that had become his constant companion. The weight of the decision pressed down on him like a physical force. His pride demanded he refuse, to not accept charity from someone who saw him as a mere pawn. But his love for Lily was stronger than pride. It always had been. No touching, he said finally. No kissing, no pretending to be in love. Just a business arrangement. Agreed, and Madison held out her hand to shake, then seemed to reconsider. Actually, we should practice. If we can't even shake hands without it being awkward, my grandfather will see right through us. Reluctantly, Jake took her hand. Her skin was soft, manicured. Everything his wasn't, but her grip was surprisingly firm, and her eyes held a determination he recognized. The look of someone fighting for survival. One day, he said, 24 hours, then we never speak again. Perfect. Madison released his hand, already pulling out her phone. I'll have my lawyer draw up a contract. Be at the Waldorf Astoria penthouse suite by 9 a.m. She paused at the elevator. And Jake, bring your daughter's medical records. The check clears faster if I can verify the expenses. As the elevator doors closed, Jake slumped against his cart. What had he just agreed to? But in his pocket, the check seemed to pulse with possibility. Lily could live. His baby girl could grow up, go to college, fall in love, have the life she deserved. Life. He pulled out his phone, looking at the photo of Lily on his lock screen, taken before the illness, when her cheeks were rosy and her laugh came easily. I'd marry the devil himself to save you, sweetheart, he whispered. Thunder rumbled over Manhattan and rain began to patter against the lobby windows. Jake returned to his mopping, but his mind was elsewhere. He thought about the road that had led him here, to this moment of desperate compromise. 8 years ago, he'd been a rising star at MIT, developing algorithms that could predict cardiac events in patients with genetic heart conditions. When Sarah got pregnant unexpectedly, he'd made the choice to drop out, to take a stable job in tech support rather than pursue his research. They'd been happy for a time. Then Lily got sick at 5, and the diagnosis of restrictive cardiomyopathy had shattered their world. Sarah couldn't handle it. 6 months of hospital visits, of watching their daughter fade away, and she was gone, leaving nothing but a note saying she wasn't strong enough to watch Lily die. Jake had been alone ever since, working 3 jobs to pay for treatments, to keep their health insurance, to give Lily every possible chance. His software project, Neuralink Solutions, had been his last hope, a system designed to predict cardiac events in children with genetic heart conditions, allowing for preventative intervention. But without academic credentials or connections, he couldn't secure the funding needed for development and clinical trials. The patents remained in his name, worthless paper promises of what might have been. Now he scrubbed floors in the same buildings where investors who might have funded his research held their cocktail parties. Life had a cruel sense of irony. As he finished his shift at dawn, Jake called his neighbor, Mrs. Rivera, who watched Lily when he worked. He asked if she could stay with Lily at the hospital a little longer today. There was something important he had to do. Of course, Jake, the elderly woman said. You know I love that little angel like my own granddaughter. Jake thanked her, his throat tight. In a world that had shown him little kindness, the small acts of compassion stood out like beacons. He took the subway home to his small apartment in Queens, showered, and put on his only decent outfit, the navy blue suit he'd worn to Sarah's funeral 3 years ago. It was slightly tight across the shoulders now, from the physical labor that had replaced his desk job, but it would have to do. The Waldorf Astoria penthouse looked like something from a movie set. Jake stood in the doorway, clutching Lily's medical folder, feeling like an intruder in his borrowed dignity. The space sprawled before him, floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing Central Park, priceless art on every wall, furniture that probably cost more than he'd make in a lifetime. You're early. Good. Madison appeared from a side room, transformed from last night's broken heiress into a vision of corporate power. Her cream designer suit was flawless, hair swept into an elegant chignon, makeup concealing any trace of tears. Only her eyes betrayed her tension. Where do I put this? Jake held up the medical folder awkwardly. My assistant will handle it. Madison's jaw tightened. Former assistant, grandfather made sure to have me fired from my own company this morning. Effective immediately unless I meet his terms. A woman in her 50s entered, carrying a leather portfolio. The contracts, Miss Rothschild, and Mr. Morrison's new identification documents. Jake accepted the portfolio, flipping through. Wait, this says I graduated from Harvard. Your new background, Madison explained, pouring coffee from a silver service. Jake Morrison, tech entrepreneur who lost everything in a startup crash. We met at a charity gala 6 months ago. I was drawn to your dedication to your daughter. You were charmed by my hidden vulnerability beneath the Ice Queen exterior. Ice Queen? That's what the tabloids call me. She handed him the coffee. Black. Somehow she'd guessed right. Grandfather will have investigators crawling all over your past within hours. This gives them something to find. Jake scanned the contract. This is thorough. Page 12 outlines the payment schedule. Sign wherever you see yellow tabs. Madison watched him over her cup. Unless you're having second thoughts. He thought of Lily alone in her hospital room. No second thoughts. He signed quickly, each signature feeling like stepping off a cliff. Excellent. Now we practice. Madison sat down her coffee, moving closer. My grandfather is old-fashioned but sharp. He'll expect certain displays of affection. We agreed, no touching. That was before I spent all night thinking this through. She positioned herself beside him. We need 3 convincing moments. A handhold when we enter, a kiss after the ceremony, 1 dance at the reception. Jake's stomach clenched. Kiss? Stage kiss. Barely a brush of lips, angled photographers can't tell. Madison demonstrated the position, her face inches from his. See? From the side, it looks passionate. In reality, there's space between us. This close, Jake noticed things. The faint freckles her makeup didn't quite hide. The way she bit her lower lip when nervous. She smelled like vanilla and something floral. Expensive, but not overwhelming. Try it, she commanded. Jake leaned in, stopping just short of contact. Their breaths mingled, and for a moment something electric passed between them. Madison stepped back quickly, spots of color on her cheeks. Good enough. Now background details. She returned to business mode, but Jake caught her touching her lips briefly. Your daughter, Lily, tell me about her. Why? Because if grandfather asks about her and I know nothing, we're finished. Madison's voice softened. And because I should know about the child I'm helping to save. Jake pulled out his phone, showing her photos. She's 7, loves butterflies, hates broccoli, reads 3 grades above her level. She was diagnosed with restrictive cardiomyopathy 2 years ago. Her heart is failing. Madison studied the photos with unexpected intensity. She has your eyes. Her mother's smile, though. The words slipped out before he could stop them. Where is her mother? Jake's jaw tightened. Gone. Couldn't handle a sick kid and a husband working 3 jobs. I'm sorry. Don't be. Lily and I do fine on our own. He pocketed the phone. What about you? What is your story? Madison laughed, but it wasn't happy. Poor little rich girl, right? Parents died in a yacht accident when I was 8. Grandfather raised me to be his heir, then decided I was too much like him. Cold, calculating, focused on business instead of family. Are you? She met his eyes directly. Yes, but that doesn't mean I don't feel things. I just learned early that feelings are luxuries people like us can't afford. The honesty in her voice surprised him. People like us? Survivors, Madison said simply. You'll do anything for your daughter. I'll do anything for my company. That makes us the same species in this ecosystem. Jake was about to respond when Madison's phone buzzed. She checked it and paled. What's wrong? He asked. That was security. Grandfather's on his way up. He wasn't supposed to arrive for another hour. She smoothed her already perfect suit. He's testing us already. Jake felt a flutter of panic. I thought we'd have more time to prepare. We don't. Just follow my lead and remember, we're in love. What happened next surprised Jake. Madison didn't just take his hand. She stepped closer, aligning her body with his, her hand resting lightly on his chest. The gesture was intimate, practiced, the move of a woman comfortable with her partner. 6 months, she whispered urgently. We've been together 6 months. You proposed 3 weeks ago, simple dinner at my apartment. I cried. Not like me, but you bring out my emotional side. Jake nodded, trying to memorize details, but his mind kept snagging on the feel of her hand against his heart. For someone playing a role, her touch felt remarkably natural. The elevator chimed, and William Rothschild entered like a force of nature. At 82, he still commanded every room. Silver hair perfect, black suit impeccable, eyes sharp as a raptor's. Those eyes fixed on Jake immediately, cataloging everything from his borrowed shoes to the calluses on his hands. So, William's voice was cultured granite. This is the man who captured my granddaughter's frozen heart. Grandfather, Madison's grip on Jake's hand tightened. This is Jake Morrison. Jake, my grandfather, William Rothschild. Jake extended his free hand. Sir. William ignored it, circling them slowly. Morrison, I don't recognize the name. New money, Jake replied, sticking to the script. Lost money, actually, Madison corrected smoothly. Jake's startup failed last year, but he's rebuilding. Sometimes failure teaches more than success. William stopped in front of Madison. You were crying last night. Tears of joy, she lied. Jake proposed after you left. Your ultimatum gave him the push he needed. How convenient. William's smile was predatory. Tell me, Mr. Morrison, what exactly do you do now that your tech venture failed? Jake felt Madison tense, but he kept his voice steady. I work as a consultant while pursuing new opportunities. Consultant? William's disbelief was palpable. How delightfully vague. He pulled out his phone. Johnson? Yes. Run a full background on Jake Morrison. Tech sector, failed startup, single father. I want the report in an hour. Grandfather, Madison stepped forward, but Jake held her back. It's fine, he said calmly. Investigate all you want. My daughter's medical bills are real. My love for Madison is real. What else matters? William studied him with new interest. You have spine. Unexpected, given Madison's usual taste in lapdog executives. He checked his Rolex. The ceremony is at noon. My lawyers will require proof of compatibility before I sign anything. What kind of proof? Madison demanded. Oh, the usual. Joint bank accounts, shared residence, intimate knowledge of each other's lives. His smile widened. You do know each other intimately, don't you? Jake felt the trap closing, but kept his expression neutral. We know what matters. Do you know she's allergic to strawberries? That she sleeps on the left side of the bed? That she has a scar on her shoulder from falling off a horse at 12? Grandfather, Madison's voice was warning. Answer the question, Mr. Morrison. William's voice cut like ice. Jake turned to Madison, studying her as if seeing her for the first time. The morning light through the windows caught the gold flecks in her green eyes, and suddenly he wasn't reciting facts from a briefing document. I know she bites her lip when she's nervous, like right now. His voice grew softer. I know she takes her coffee black because sweet things remind her of a childhood she'd rather forget. I know the scar isn't from riding. It's from trying to save an injured bird that turned out to be a hawk. She was 10, not 12, and she still tries to save things that might hurt her. Madison stared at him. How did you... The painting. Jake nodded toward an oil painting of a young girl with a bandaged shoulder cradling a bird. In your office at the building. Most people think it's just art, but it's you, isn't it? William's eyes narrowed. Lucky guess. Or maybe, Jake stepped closer to Madison, I just pay attention to the woman I love. The room went silent. Madison's hand in his had warmed, and Jake realized he wasn't entirely acting anymore. This woman who'd do anything for her company, who'd walked into his life 12 hours ago with an insane proposal. He understood her in a way he hadn't expected. The ceremony will proceed as scheduled, William said finally. But don't think this charade will fool me, Madison. I built an empire on reading people, and something here doesn't add up. He strode to the elevator, pausing at the doors. Oh, and Mr. Morrison, your daughter is at St. Mary's, room 302. Restrictive cardiomyopathy is a terrible disease. I do hope this wedding provides the funds for her treatment. The threat in his voice was clear. Jake felt Madison tremble beside him as the elevator doors closed. He knows, she whispered. God, he knows everything. Then we give him what he wants. Jake turned her to face him, hands on her shoulders. A real marriage, not permanent, but real enough to fool him today. Jake, I can't. You can. He thought of Lily, of Madison's tears last night, of the determination in both their eyes. We're survivors, remember? We do whatever it takes. Madison searched his face, and for a moment her mask slipped completely. I'm scared, she admitted, the words barely audible. Me too, Jake said honestly. But we've got 3 hours to fall in love. Think we can manage it? Against all odds, she laughed, real this time, not the sharp society version. With my inheritance and your daughter's life on the line, we'd better. The following hours were a crash course in each other's lives. Madison quizzed Jake on her favorite books, financial biographies, surprisingly. Her morning routine, up at 5 a.m., yoga, then work. Her guilty pleasures, reality cooking, shows she'd deny watching. Jake shared stories about Lily, about his research, about the days when he believed he could change the world with algorithms and determination. At 11, Madison's team arrived. Hairstylists, makeup artists, a tailor for last-minute adjustments to Jake's new suit. Through it all, Williams' investigators called repeatedly, digging into Jake's fabricated background. They'll find inconsistencies, Madison warned as her hair was pinned up. Grandfather has resources you can't imagine. Then we give them something real to find, Jake decided. He pulled out his phone and made a call. Professor Harlow, it's Jake Morrison. I need a favor. Richard Harlow had been Jake's mentor at MIT, the only faculty member who'd kept in touch after Jake dropped out. He was now department chair, and within 20 minutes, he'd uploaded records confirming Jake had been his most promising student before leaving to launch a startup. That covers the education gap, Jake explained. Now for the company. His friend Miguel, who ran a small tech incubator in Brooklyn, agreed to backdate documents showing Neuralink Solutions had been housed in his facility until its failure 18 months ago. The patents at least were real and in Jake's name. Your grandfather's investigators will find just enough truth to make the lies convincing, Jake told Madison as they prepared to leave for the ceremony. She looked at him with new respect. You're good at this. I'm good at surviving, he corrected, just like you. The Rothschild family chapel occupied the top floor of a Fifth Avenue building, accessible only by private elevator. As Jake adjusted his tie for the 100th time, he tried not to think about how many armed security guards they'd passed or how Madison's hand had trembled in his during the ride up. Stop fidgeting, Madison murmured, but her own fingers were white-knuckled around her bouquet of white orchids that probably cost more than his monthly rent. Your grandfather has 7 lawyers in there, Jake whispered back. I counted 8. You missed Steinberg in the corner. They shared a nervous smile to convince 8 lawyers, 14 board members, and 1 vindictive billionaire that they were madly in love. The chapel took Jake's breath away. Sunlight streamed through stained glass windows, casting rainbow patterns on marble floors. The gathered audience was small but powerful. Faces Jake recognized from business magazines and society pages watched like hawks as Madison walked down the aisle on his arm. William Rothschild stood near the altar, speaking quietly with a man holding a thick folder. As they approached, Jake heard fragments: offshore accounts, prenuptial clauses, investigation results. Grandfather, Madison's voice carried steel beneath silk. How lovely that you're discussing business at my wedding. Just ensuring everything is legitimate. William's smile could have frozen champagne. Johnson here has some interesting findings about Mr. Morrison. Jake's blood chilled, but he kept his expression calm. What had they found? His real job? Some forgotten detail that would expose their lie? Johnson opened the folder. Mr. Morrison's startup Neuralink Solutions filed for bankruptcy 18 months ago. However, the technology patents remain in his name. Worthless patents, William corrected, for failed medical software. Jake felt Madison stiffen beside him. The software had been designed to predict cardiac events in children, a project born from Lily's diagnosis. Dead from lack of funding, Jake acknowledged, feeling a genuine pang. This was the truth that hurt most, his inability to complete work that might have helped his own daughter. Not worthless, Madison said suddenly. Undervalued. I've been consulting with Jake about reviving the project under Rothschild Industries' medical division. William's eyes sharpened. You never mentioned this. Because you would have seen it as another sign of my bleeding heart. Madison lifted her chin. But cardiac prediction software could save thousands of children and make millions in profit. Jake's passion for the project is what drew me to him. It was a brilliant lie, weaving truth into fiction so seamlessly Jake almost believed it himself. The gathered board members murmured with interest. Profit always caught their attention. We'll discuss this later, William said curtly, assuming this farce of a ceremony proceeds. The officiant, clearly uncomfortable with the tension, cleared his throat. Shall we begin? What followed was the strangest hour of Jake's life. He repeated vows about love and commitment while 8 lawyers took notes. He slipped a ring worth more than houses onto Madison's finger while she whispered stock prices to keep herself calm. And when the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," time seemed to stop. They had practiced this, the stage kiss, the careful angle. But as Jake leaned in, Madison's eyes met his, and something shifted. Maybe it was the way sunlight caught the tears she was fighting. Maybe it was the weight of promises they were making, even falsely. Or maybe it was just 2 desperate people recognizing each other's pain. The kiss was supposed to be fake, a brush of lips, nothing more. But Madison's hand touched his cheek, and Jake found himself deepening it just for a heartbeat. He tasted champagne and determination, felt her surprise and something else, something that made them both pull back, breathless. The chapel erupted in polite applause, but Jake barely heard it. Madison's eyes were wide, her carefully applied lipstick smudged. They'd crossed a line neither expected. Congratulations, Mrs. Morrison. William's voice cut through the moment like ice water. Now let's see if your marriage survives the reception. As they processed out of the chapel, a woman in her 60s approached them. Elegant in understated navy, she slipped a card into Jake's hand. Patricia Chen, she whispered. Board member and Madison's godmother. Meet me on the terrace in 20 minutes. There's something you need to know. Before Jake could respond, she was gone, swallowed by the crowd of well-wishers surrounding them. He tucked the card into his pocket, wondering what new complication had just entered their already impossible situation. The reception was held in the building's penthouse ballroom, a space that screamed old money and older power. Jake tried not to gawk at the crystal chandeliers or the way waiters appeared with champagne before glasses emptied. Stop looking overwhelmed, Madison coached quietly as they made their entrance. You've been to these before, remember? Right, all those galas I attended while bankrupt. But Jake straightened his shoulders, drawing on skills learned from watching the wealthy as he cleaned their homes. Chin up, smile confident, move like you belong. They worked the room like a team. Madison introduced him to board members while Jake deflected probing questions with careful half-truths. He discovered she had a tell when lying. Her thumb rubbed her ring finger. She learned he could charm elderly socialites by discussing his daughter with genuine emotion. 20 minutes in, Jake excused himself and slipped onto the terrace where Patricia Chen waited, watching the Manhattan skyline. You're either very brave or very foolish, Mr. Morrison, she said without turning around. Perhaps both. I'm a father who'd do anything for his daughter, Jake replied simply. Patricia turned, studying him with shrewd eyes. Yes, I believe you are, which is why I'm going to warn you. William isn't just testing this marriage. He's setting Madison up to fail. What do you mean? I've known William for 40 years. He doesn't do anything without multiple motives. She sipped her champagne. The marriage ultimatum isn't about Madison finding love. It's about control. And there's something else, something medical that I've been sworn not to discuss. Jake's mind raced. Is Madison sick? Patricia's expression gave nothing away. I didn't say that, but I will tell you this. William is obsessed with legacy, with bloodlines, with the Rothschild name continuing, and he believes Madison is too devoted to the company to focus on what he considers her real duty. Having children, Jake realized. Creating heirs, Patricia corrected. In William's world, there's a difference. He sees Madison as a vessel for the next generation of Rothschilds, not as a woman with her own desires. That's medieval. That's William. Patricia finished her champagne. Be careful, Mr. Morrison. Your daughter's life isn't the only one at stake here. Madison has been William's puppet for too long. This rebellion of hers, marrying you, it's the first time she's truly defied him. I'm just a means to an end for her, Jake said, but the words felt hollow after that kiss in the chapel. Are you? Patricia's smile was knowing. I've known Madison since she was 8 years old, crying in a boardroom while lawyers divided her parents' assets. She's never looked at anyone the way she looked at you during that kiss. It's just business, Jake insisted. Is it? Patricia nodded toward the ballroom where Madison stood, scanning the crowd for him with barely concealed anxiety. That girl has been alone her entire life, built walls so high even she can't see over them. But today, for just a moment, I saw them crack. Jake watched Madison, noting the rigid line of her spine, the way she held herself apart even in a crowd. 24 hours doesn't change anything, he said, more to convince himself than Patricia. No, Patricia agreed, but sometimes cracks are how the light gets in. She touched his arm gently. Your daughter, Lily. Madison asked me to expedite the surgery scheduling at St. Mary's. Pulled every string she had. Jake's throat constricted. She did? This morning before you arrived, set up a medical trust to ensure ongoing care, not just the surgery. Patricia studied him. Whatever happens with William's tests, know that she's already protecting your daughter. That's not business, Mr. Morrison. That's something else entirely. Before Jake could respond, William appeared at the terrace doors. Ah, Patricia, filling our new groom's head with stories about Madison's childhood? His tone was light, but his eyes were cold. I need to borrow him for a moment. Patricia squeezed Jake's arm in warning before departing. William waited until she was out of earshot before speaking. You've done well so far, Mr. Morrison. The background checks, the performance in the chapel, quite convincing. But now comes the real test, which is proof. William handed him an envelope. The trust requires consummation of the marriage, medical verification. Jake stared at the document in disbelief. You can't be serious, dead serious. It's an old clause in the family trust. Archaic, invasive, but legally binding. The examination is scheduled for 8 a.m. tomorrow. William's smile was merciless. Unless, of course, you'd like to admit this marriage is a sham and walk away now, I'm sure your daughter's doctors would understand. The mention of Lily made Jake's fists clench. You're using my child as leverage? I'm ensuring my granddaughter doesn't throw away her birthright on a desperate janitor. William's voice dropped to a whisper. Oh yes, I know exactly who you are, Jake Morrison. Night janitor at the Rothschild Tower, former MIT dropout, failed scientist. Jake felt the world tilt beneath him. How? Did you really think those ridiculous fake documents would fool me? I've known about you for months, ever since you started working in my building. William straightened his tie. The question is, does Madison know who she really married today? Before Jake could answer, Madison appeared beside them, slipping her arm through his possessively. Everything all right, darling? She asked, but her eyes were on her grandfather. Just welcoming Jake to the family, William said smoothly, and discussing tomorrow's formalities. Madison saw the envelope in Jake's hand and paled. Grandfather, you didn't. The trust is quite specific, my dear. I don't make the rules. William checked his watch. Now I believe it's time for your first dance as husband and wife. The board is watching. As William walked away, Madison gripped Jake's arm tightly. What did he say to you? He knows, Jake whispered. About my real job, about everything. Madison closed her eyes briefly. In the envelope? Medical examination. Tomorrow morning. I'm going to be sick, she murmured, but her public face remained perfect. We'll figure this out. First we dance, then we get out of here and regroup. The orchestra began a waltz. Madison led Jake to the center of the floor as guests gathered around them. Her heels brought her close to his height, and she moved with practiced grace. You dance well, she noted with surprise as he guided her through a turn. YouTube tutorial this morning, he admitted. Lily helped. She thinks I'm at a fancy work party. You'll tell her eventually that you married a stranger for money, Madison said softly. Not my finest moment either. Any regrets? Jake dipped her gently, noting how her breath caught. Lost me in 23 hours. But her hand on his shoulder relaxed, and for a moment they just danced. Two people finding rhythm in chaos. The music ended, and the crowd applauded. Madison kept hold of Jake's hand as they moved toward the edge of the room. We need to talk, she whispered, about what grandfather told you, about tomorrow. Jake nodded, suddenly aware of how many eyes were on them. Where? The apartment, the one they've prepared for us as newlyweds. We'll leave in 15 minutes, separately. She squeezed his hand. And Jake, whatever he told you about me, about why he's doing this, remember that my grandfather lies as easily as he breathes. As Madison was pulled away by well-wishers, Jake found himself alone at the edge of the ballroom, watching the glittering crowd of Manhattan's elite. 24 hours ago, he'd been pushing a mop across the lobby floor. Now he was married to an heiress, threatened by a billionaire, and caught in a web of deception that grew more tangled by the minute. But somewhere in that tangle was the thread of hope, a chance for Lily, a future he'd thought lost forever. And perhaps, though he hardly dared admit it even to himself, something unexpected growing between him and the woman who now wore his ring. Jake touched the envelope in his pocket. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new deceptions. But for tonight, he'd play his part in this elaborate charade. For Lily, for Madison. For the chance that something real might emerge from the lies they'd both been forced to tell. The penthouse apartment Madison had designated as their marital home felt like a museum after midnight. Jake stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, watching Manhattan glitter below, while Madison paced behind him, still in her wedding dress but barefoot now, designer heels abandoned by the door. The reception had finally ended, leaving them alone with the weight of William's ultimatum. He's not going to let this go, Madison said, running her fingers through her hair, destroying the careful styling. That examination requirement, it's barbaric. I knew he was controlling, but this crosses every line. Jake turned from the window, loosening his tie. The day had been a blur of introductions, champagne toasts, and careful performances for William's watchful eyes. Throughout it all, he'd been struck by how naturally they'd fallen into their roles. Madison's hand in his had felt right somehow, their bodies finding comfortable proximity without awkward adjustments. You were brilliant today, he said quietly. That speech at the ceremony. Madison's lips curved slightly. You weren't so bad yourself. Where did that vow come from? About seeing me when no one else does? During the ceremony, Jake had been expected to recite standard vows, but when the moment came, different words had emerged. He'd spoken about finding someone who understood sacrifice, who wore armor not because she was cold, but because she'd learned early that vulnerability was dangerous. Someone whose rare smiles were more precious because they were earned, not freely given. I just said what felt true, Jake admitted. Your grandfather wasn't the only one surprised. Madison stopped pacing, studying him. You really see me, don't you? Even before today, when you were just the night janitor and I was just the Ice Queen CEO, you notice things. It's what I do, Jake shrugged. Janitors are invisible. We see everything because no one sees us. I saw you, Madison said softly, at the holiday fundraiser 6 months ago. You were the only person who didn't ask me for money or connections. You just talked about Lily and her butterfly collection. It was refreshing. Jake remembered that night. He'd been working, but the building manager had encouraged staff to mingle briefly with tenants to create community goodwill. Madison had been alone by the windows, avoiding the crowd. You donated anonymously to Lily's medical fund that night, Jake realized. $5,000. I always wondered who it was. Madison looked away. It wasn't enough. It bought her medicine for 3 months. The silence between them held none of the awkwardness of strangers. Instead, it carried the weight of recognition. Two people who'd been watching each other from different worlds, connected by unexpected understanding. Madison's phone buzzed, breaking the moment. She checked it, and her expression hardened. Grandfather's spies report we've arrived at the apartment. He's reminding me about tomorrow's examination. Her voice was steady, but Jake saw her hands trembling. Madison, he began, not sure what to say. The medical examination loomed between them, an invasive violation disguised as legal necessity. Don't, she said sharply. We need to be practical. We have 3 options. 1, we refuse the examination and I lose everything. 2, she faltered, then lifted her chin. We consummate this marriage for real, giving them the proof they want. Or 3, we find a way to fake the results. Can the results be faked? Jake asked. Not what the doctor's grandfather uses. They're paid too well to be bribed, and the tests are comprehensive. Madison's clinical tone couldn't hide her discomfort. This clause was created generations ago to prevent fortune hunters from entering the family through sham marriages. In the past, it was enforced through bedsheet inspections. Grandfather has modernized it with medical verification. That's medieval, Jake said, echoing his earlier words to Patricia. That's family legacy, Madison corrected bitterly. The Rothschilds have been obsessed with bloodlines since before America existed. My grandfather just carries the tradition into the 21st century with better technology. Jake ran a hand through his hair. So we refuse. If we refuse, Lily doesn't get her surgery. Madison stated it plainly, and I lose control of the company to my cousin Richard, who will dismantle it for quick profits. The blunt assessment hung between them. Jake thought of Lily in her hospital bed, of the machines monitoring her failing heart, of the specialist who'd said the experimental treatment was her best chance. I can't ask you to go through with option 2, he said finally. That wasn't our agreement. Madison turned away, moving to the bar cart to pour herself a drink. Our agreement has evolved with every hour. We never planned on William knowing your real identity. We never planned on a medical examination. Her hand shook slightly as she lifted the glass. Sometimes I think he's always 10 steps ahead, that this whole scenario is just another one of his tests. What do you mean? William doesn't do anything without multiple purposes. She took a long swallow of her drink. The marriage ultimatum, the timing, choosing today of all days, there's something else happening here. Jake crossed to her, close enough to see the gold flecks in her green eyes. Madison, what aren't you telling me? She set down her glass, her fingers gripping the edge of the bar. Patricia told you, didn't she, about William's obsession with legacy? She mentioned it, said he sees you as a vessel for the next generation. Madison's laugh was hollow. A broodmare for the Rothschild dynasty. My biological clock is ticking in his mind. I'm 26, practically ancient by his standards. My mother was married at 20, had me at 22. She met Jake's gaze directly. Last year, grandfather started scheduling me for routine medical checkups every month. The doctors always asked about my cycle, my fertility. I thought it was standard women's health. Then I found paperwork in his study about reproductive timelines and genetic compatibility screening for potential matches. He was planning to arrange a marriage, Jake realized, to ensure optimal genetic offspring, Madison confirmed. I confronted him. He denied it, of course, but the monthly appointments continued. Then last week, I refused to attend the latest checkup. That's when he changed his will, created this ultimatum. Jake felt a chill. The examination tomorrow isn't just about proving our marriage is real. It's about verifying my fertility, Madison finished, making sure the Rothschild air factory is operational before he hands over the keys to the kingdom. The cold calculation behind William's actions made Jake's stomach turn. That's why he was so interested in my background, my genetics. He's treating this like breeding stock selection. Welcome to my world. Madison's voice was bitter. where even your DNA is a corporate asset. Jake looked at her, really looked at her, and saw not the Ice Queen CEO or the desperate heiress, but a woman who'd been manipulated her entire life, whose value had always been measured in what she could provide: an heir, a successor, a vessel for someone else's legacy. "We don't have to do this," he said quietly. "I'll find another way to pay for Lily's surgery." "How?" Madison challenged. "Second mortgage on an apartment you don't own? Another fundraiser that brings in pennies when you need hundreds of thousands?" "We're out of options, Jake. Both of us." She was right, and they both knew it. The weight of their respective responsibilities, his to Lily, hers to the company she'd built, left no room for pride or principle. "There has to be another way," Jake insisted, unwilling to cross the line that would turn their business arrangement into something far more complicated. Madison stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "Maybe there is. We've been thinking about this all wrong. We're trying to beat William at his own game, but he's been playing it for decades. We need to change the rules." She began to pace again, energy returning to her movements. "What if we convince the board that my value isn't in producing heirs, but in my business vision? What if we show them that your software could revolutionize Rothschild Industries' medical division?" Jake blinked, following her logic. "Use business to counter biology?" "Exactly." Madison's eyes lit with determination. "The board meeting is scheduled for tomorrow afternoon after the examination. I need to present a compelling business case that makes the company's future depend on both of us. Your software, my leadership." "My software is years from market ready," Jake cautioned. "It needs funding, testing, regulatory approval." "But the concept is sound. The algorithms work?" Jake nodded slowly. "In simulations, yes. It can predict cardiac events in pediatric patients with 78% accuracy, which is significantly better than current methods. With more data and refinement, it could reach 90%. "That's $1 billion breakthrough," Madison said, excitement building in her voice. "Rothschild Industries has the resources to fast-track development and approval. We could have it market-ready in 18 months instead of 5 years." As she spoke, Jake saw a transformation. The vulnerable woman of moments ago was replaced by the brilliant strategist who'd built Rothschild Industries' medical division from a minor subsidiary into a major profit center. "You're serious about this," he realized. "This isn't just a distraction from tomorrow's examination." "I'm deadly serious," Madison confirmed. "Your software could save thousands of children like Lily, and it could give us leverage with the board. William controls the family trust, but the board controls company operations. If they see us as essential to Rothschild Industries' future, they'll pressure William to back off." Jake felt a spark of hope, but practical concerns remained. "The examination is still happening tomorrow morning." Madison's expression sobered. "Yes, and we still have to decide how to handle that." They fell silent, the implication hanging between them. Jake moved to the windows again, needing space to think. Below, Manhattan pulsed with light and life, oblivious to the drama unfolding 90 stories above. "I should check on Lily," he said finally, pulling out his phone. As he called the hospital, Madison retreated to give him privacy, disappearing into the master bedroom. The night nurse confirmed Lily was sleeping peacefully, her vital signs stable. Jake thanked her, promising to visit first thing in the morning before the examination. When he ended the call, Jake noticed Madison hadn't returned. He approached the bedroom door, knocking softly. "Madison, everything okay?" No answer. Concerned, he pushed the door open to find her sitting on the edge of the massive bed, staring at a small bottle of pills in her hand. "What are those?" he asked, immediately alarmed. "Sleeping pills," she said without looking up. "I haven't slept properly in weeks, not since grandfather started increasing the pressure about marriage and heirs." The vulnerability in her voice drew him into the room. "You don't have to explain." "I do, though." She finally looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. "I want you to understand what you've gotten yourself into. William will never stop pushing. Even if we pass tomorrow's tests, even if the board supports us, he'll find new ways to control me, to control us." Jake sat beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. "Why does he have so much power over you? You're brilliant, successful in your own right." Madison's smile was sad. "Because he raised me. Because after my parents died, he was all I had. Because he made me believe that without him, without the Rothschild name and fortune, I was nothing. She set the pills aside. And because until today, I never found the courage to truly defy him. What changed today? She looked at him directly. I met someone who reminded me what courage looks like. Someone who works 3 jobs to save his daughter, who gave up a brilliant career to be there for his family, who looks at the most powerful man in New York and doesn't flinch. Jake felt heat rise to his face. I'm just doing what any father would do. No, Madison said softly. You're doing what a good man does. There's a difference. The air between them seemed to change, charged with something neither was ready to name. Jake cleared his throat. About tomorrow. I know what I'm asking, Madison interrupted. I know it wasn't part of our deal, but I'm not asking as part of our business arrangement anymore. She took a deep breath. I'm asking as someone who's tired of letting fear dictate my life, who's tired of being alone because it's safer. Madison, so we can wait until after the examination to discuss the business strategy, she continued quickly. That part doesn't have to be decided tonight. What? Jake studied her face, seeing not calculation but genuine emotion. You're sure? No, she admitted with surprising honesty. I'm not sure of anything except that for the first time in my life, I want to make a choice that's entirely mine. Not William's, not the board's, not my parents' legacy. Mine. Her hand found his, warm and steady despite her admission of uncertainty. And yours, if you want it to be. Jake thought of the kiss in the chapel, of the moment something had shifted between them, of the way Madison had arranged Lily's surgery without being asked, how she'd defended him to William, how she trusted him with her vulnerabilities. This isn't just about passing the examination, he said, needing to be clear. No, she agreed. It's about choosing our own path forward, whatever that looks like. Jake gently brushed a strand of hair from her face. What does it look like to you? I don't know yet, Madison answered, but I'd like to find out, together. The word hung between them, full of possibility. Jake leaned forward slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. Instead, Madison met him halfway, their lips meeting in a kiss that held none of the performance of the chapel, only genuine connection. When they separated, Jake rested his forehead against hers. Together, he echoed, the word of promise. Morning arrived with harsh clarity. The medical examiner's office occupied a discreet brownstone, all tasteful furniture and crushing judgment. Jake and Madison sat in the waiting room, neither speaking about what had passed between them the night before. Some experiences were too new, too fragile to withstand examination in daylight. Mr. and Mrs. Morrison, a nurse called them back, her expression professionally neutral. The examination was clinical, invasive, and degrading. Madison endured it with frozen dignity while Jake fought the urge to punch through walls. How many hoops would William Rothschild make them jump through? Congratulations, the doctor said dryly after the longest hour of Jake's life. The marriage has been properly consummated. I'll send the report to Mr. Rothschild immediately. Outside, Madison collapsed against Jake, shaking. I'm so sorry I put us through this. Hey, he tilted her chin up. We survived together, that's what matters. She kissed him then, there on the sidewalk with no audience to perform for. Just Madison and Jake choosing each other in daylight as they had in darkness. Ready to face the board? She asked when they broke apart. With you? Ready for anything. But as their car pulled up to Rothschild Industries, Jake noticed black sedans circling the building. Madison saw them too, her hand finding his. What now, grandfather? She whispered. What fresh hell are you planning? Back at the penthouse, they had just enough time to shower and change before the board meeting. As Madison prepared, Jake received a call from St. Mary's Hospital. Lily had experienced a minor cardiac episode overnight. She was stable now, but the doctors were concerned. I need to see her, Jake said immediately. Madison nodded, already reaching for her coat. Of course, we'll go now. The board meeting can wait, Madison finished firmly. Lily comes first. At St. Mary's, they found Lily pale but alert, her small form dwarfed by the hospital bed. Her eyes widened when she saw Madison enter behind Jake. Daddy, you brought the princess from your stories. Jake froze, embarrassed. but Madison smiled warmly. I'm Madison. You must be the famous Lily I've heard so much about. Lily studied Madison with 7-year-old directness. Are you Daddy's girlfriend? Tommy at school says his dad has a girlfriend who brings him presents. Madison glanced at Jake, amusement dancing in her eyes. Something like that. Is that okay with you? Lily considered this seriously. Do you like butterflies? I love butterflies, Madison answered honestly. When I was your age, I had a collection of butterfly books. Maybe I could show you sometime. That would be awesome, Lily brightened, then turned to Jake. Daddy, I had a dream about the princess in the tower. She wasn't trapped anymore. She came down and helped people instead. Jake felt Madison's hand slip into his. That sounds like a good dream, sweetheart. As they spoke with Lily, Jake noticed Madison studying the monitors, the medication chart, the notes left by doctors. Her business mind was cataloging information, assessing the situation with the same precision she brought to corporate decisions. Dr. Reynolds was here earlier, Lily informed them. He said my heart did a funny dance last night, but it's behaving now. I told him my heart was just excited because I knew something good was happening. What good thing did you know was happening? Jake asked, curious. Lily pointed to Madison. That you wouldn't be caught and alone anymore. That you'd find someone to help us. She yawned suddenly, the conversation tiring her. The princess in the tower had to come down sometime, right? As Lily drifted off to sleep, Jake and Madison stepped into the hallway. Without warning, Madison pulled out her phone and made a call. Levin, Madison Rothschild, I need you at St. Mary's Hospital immediately to consult on a pediatric cardiomyopathy case. Yes, today, within the hour. She ended the call and met Jake's questioning look. Levin is the top pediatric cardiologist on the East Coast. He'll review Lily's case and oversee her treatment personally. Madison, you don't have to. I do, she interrupted. Last night changed things, Jake. We're in this together now. She checked her watch. The board meeting starts in 40 minutes. We should go. Jake glanced back at Lily's room. I should stay with her. Dr. Levin will be here soon, and Mrs. Rivera is on her way, right? When Jake nodded, Madison continued, then Lily will be in good hands. And the best thing we can do for her now is secure her future by dealing with William. Jake knew she was right. With a last look at his sleeping daughter, he followed Madison to the waiting car. During the ride to Rothschild Tower, Madison briefed him on the board members, who would support them, who would side with William, who could be swayed. She'd spent the early morning hours preparing a presentation on Jake's cardiac prediction software and its potential market impact. I've arranged for Richard Harlow from MI Tattoo video conference in, she explained. He'll validate your research credentials and the algorithm's viability. That should counter any attempts by William to discredit you. Jake was impressed by her thoroughness. You've thought of everything. Not everything, Madison admitted. William always has contingency plans. We need to be ready for whatever he throws at us. Jake and Madison arrived at the boardroom early the next morning, determined to face whatever new challenge William had prepared. The tension was palpable as board members filed in, their expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed hostility. Despite William's absence due to his hospital stay, his presence loomed large through the battalion of lawyers positioned at the far end of the table. Now that we've confirmed the legitimacy of this union, William began, his voice silky with contempt, shall we proceed with the transfer of assets? Finally, Madison muttered. But Jake noticed her grandfather's smile, the predatory one that promised blood. Of course there are formalities, William nodded to his chief counsel, who produced a stack of documents. The marriage certificate, naturally, the medical certification, regrettably necessary. He paused, savoring the moment, and the background investigation into Mr. Morrison's actual employment history. Jake's blood froze. Beside him, Madison's hand clenched on the table. I believe, William continued, the board would be interested to know that Madison's new husband is not, in fact, a failed entrepreneur. He's a janitor in her own building. The room erupted. Board members shouted over each other while lawyers frantically checked documents. Madison stood, trembling with rage. That doesn't invalidate our marriage, she insisted. Doesn't it? William's voice cut through the chaos. You lied to the board, presented false credentials, married an employee, a clear violation of company ethics policies. He's not technically an employee of Rothschild Industries, Madison argued. He works for the building management company. William produced a contract, a subsidiary we own, making Mr. Morrison subject to our non-fraternization clause. The marriage is not only inappropriate, but potentially illegal from a corporate standpoint. Jake found his voice. We didn't know about the subsidiary relationship. Ignorance is not a defense. William stood, circling the table like a shark. But I'm willing to offer a solution. Annul the marriage immediately, and I'll release a modest settlement. Enough for your daughter's surgery, Mr. Morrison. Madison keeps her position, but forfeits the inheritance. No, Madison's voice was steel. I met your conditions. I married within the deadline. You committed fraud. William's mask finally slipped, showing real anger beneath. Did you think I wouldn't investigate? That I'd let you make a mockery of our family legacy? The only mockery, Madison shot back, is you trying to control my life like you controlled my father's. Like you drove my parents to... Enough, William's roar silenced the room. Your parents died because they were reckless, because they put emotion before logic, just as you're doing now. He turned to Jake, eyes glittering with malice. Tell me, Mr. Morrison, when Madison approached you with this scheme, and yes, I have security footage of your late-night encounter, did she mention the real reason I demanded she marry? Jake glanced at Madison, who'd gone pale. The inheritance is only part of it. William revealed, producing the medical file that had been prepared long before this confrontation. As I'm sure you've guessed by now, this is about much more than just company control. The room went deadly quiet. Jake stared at Madison, who looked like she'd been struck. That's not... She swayed, gripping the table. The doctors said I was clear. The doctors I paid said what I told them to say. William's voice was almost gentle now. I needed you focused on the company, not worrying about your health. But now, with you nearing 30, time is running out. You need children, Madison, heirs, and that requires a husband with suitable genetics. You're insane, Madison's voice cracked. You lied about my health to manipulate me into breeding? I protected you until you were ready. William gestured dismissively. Mr. Morrison's daughter has a heart condition. Clearly his genetics are flawed. This marriage doesn't just threaten the company, it threatens our bloodline. Jake stood slowly, fury building in his chest. You're talking about our lives like we're livestock. You're talking about my empire like it's a game. William had matched his stance. 40 generations of Rothschilds built this. I won't let it die because my granddaughter fell for the first sob story she heard. Fell for? Madison laughed, high and broken. You think I fell for him? The security footage from last night suggests, I love him. The declaration echoed through the boardroom. Madison stood between Jake and her grandfather, shaking but defiant. I didn't mean to, she continued, voice stronger. It was supposed to be business, a transaction. But Jake sees me, not the heiress or the CEO or the breeding stock you've tried to make me. He sees Madison. She turned to the board, addressing them directly. Yes, I lied about his background. Yes, he's a janitor. He's also a brilliant programmer whose medical software could revolutionize cardiac care for children. He's a devoted father who'd do anything for his daughter. He's the first person in 20 years who's looked at me without calculating my net worth. Madison, Jake tried to intervene, but she wasn't finished. You want to talk genetics, grandfather? She pulled out her phone, projecting documents onto the boardroom screen. Let's talk about Jake's real background. MIT dropout. Not because he failed, but because his wife was pregnant. 3 patents in medical technology. IQ tested at 140. Is that suitable enough at breeding stock for you? William's face darkened. You're making a fool of yourself. No, you made a fool of me. Madison's voice broke. Lying about my health, manipulating my life, treating me like a prize heifer. But it ends now. She turned to the board. Call the vote, recognize my marriage and release my inheritance, or I walk. I'll take my 40% stake, my knowledge of every deal and dirty secret, and start my own company. How long do you think Rothschild Industries survives without a Rothschild? Patricia Chen spoke first. I move to recognize the marriage and release the inheritance as specified in the trust. Seconded, another board member added quickly. The vote was swift. 9 to 5 in Madison's favor. William watched his carefully constructed plan crumble, his face aging years and moments. "You'll regret this," he told Madison quietly. "When emotion fails and reality sets in. When love isn't enough to pay medical bills or run an empire. Maybe," Madison took Jake's hand, intertwining their fingers, "but I'd rather fail at something real than succeed at your lies." They left together, walking past the stunned board members and shell-shocked lawyers. In the elevator, Madison finally broke down, sobbing against Jake's chest. "A heart condition," she gasped between tears. "He lied about a heart condition. What else did he lie about? What if—" "Hey," Jake held her tighter. "We'll get you checked. Real doctors, real tests. Whatever's wrong, we'll face it together." "Together," she looked up, mascara streaking. "Jake, I didn't mean to say that about loving you. You don't have to." He silenced her with a kiss, pouring everything he couldn't say into the contact. When they broke apart, he cupped her face gently. "Madison Rothschild Morrison," he said formally. "I know we did this backwards. I know it's only been 24 hours, but somewhere between 'Will you marry me?' and 'I do,' I fell for you too." "Really?" Hope and disbelief warred in her voice. "Really?" He wiped her tears. "So what do you say? Want to try being married for more than a day?" Madison laughed through her tears. "My grandfather will hate it." "Good. The board will think we're crazy." "Probably." "And Lily," Madison's voice softened. "How do we explain this to Lily?" Jake smiled, remembering his daughter's dream about the princess. "How about the truth? That sometimes when you're trying to save each other, you accidentally fall in love." As the elevator reached the lobby, Madison kissed him again. "I like that story." "Me too." Jake held the door for his real wife now, chosen not for money or desperation, but for the connection that had bloomed in impossible soil. "Now let's go tell our daughter her surgery is scheduled, and she's getting a mom in the bargain." "Our daughter?" Madison's voice was wondering. "If you want," Jake squeezed her hand. "I know it's fast." "Everything important happens fast," Madison quoted his words from the night before. "And Jake? Thank you for what?" "For making me real." They walked into the Manhattan morning, two broken people who'd found wholeness in each other's sharp edges. Behind them, Rothschild Industries Tower loomed, but ahead stretched something better than billions, a future they'd choose together. At St. Mary's, they found Dr. Levin already reviewing Lily's charts. His assessment was cautiously optimistic. The experimental treatment could significantly improve her condition, possibly leading to a full recovery with proper follow-up care. "I've scheduled the surgery for next week," he informed them. "I've already cleared my calendar." As they entered Lily's room, her face lit up at the sight of Madison. "You came back. I told Daddy the princess would come back." Madison smiled, taking the seat beside Lily's bed. "I did, and I have some good news. Dr. Levin is going to do your surgery next week. He's the best heart doctor in the whole country." Lily's eyes widened. "Will it fix my heart?" "It should make it much stronger," Madison answered honestly. "And I'll be right here with you and your dad the whole time." Lily studied Madison with that direct gaze that missed nothing. "Are you going to be my new mom?" Madison glanced at Jake, who nodded encouragement. "Would you like that?" Madison asked carefully. "My first mom didn't want a sick kid," Lily said matter-of-factly. "But you know I'm sick, and you're here anyway, so you must be better." Madison's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, sweetheart." She took Lily's small hand. "I would be honored to be your mom. And guess what? We might have the same heart condition, you and I." "Really?" Lily seemed intrigued rather than frightened by this possibility. "Really? So we'll get better together, okay?" As Lily and Madison chatted about butterfly books and heart monitors, Jake's phone buzzed with a text from Patricia Chen. "William collapsed after the meeting. Hospital says minor stroke. He's asking for Madison." Jake showed Madison the message discreetly. Her expression hardened, then softened with complexity. "We should go," she said quietly. "As much as I hate what he did, he's still my grandfather." Jake nodded. "Family is complicated." "It is," Madison agreed, looking between him and Lily. "But I think I'm finally building one worth fighting for." As they prepared to leave, promising Lily they'd return soon, Jake's phone rang again. It was Miguel from the tech incubator. Jake, man, you won't believe this. Rothschild Industries Medical Division just called. They want to license your cardiac prediction software. They're offering $2 million upfront and royalties. Jake stared at Madison, who smiled innocently. Did you? I may have made a few calls while you were talking to Dr. Levin, she admitted. The board was quite impressed with your presentation, even if they didn't get to see it. They're eager to fast-track development. $2 million, Jake whispered, stunned. Plus royalties, Madison reminded him. Enough to cover Lily's medical care for life. Enough to let you finish what you started at MIT. She kissed his cheek. Consider it a wedding present. As they left the hospital hand in hand, Jake realized how much had changed in 24 hours. Yesterday, he'd been a janitor with a dying daughter and dwindling hope. Today, he had a wife, a future, and the chance to complete the work he'd abandoned years ago. Work that might save not only Lily but thousands of children like her. And Madison had gained something too, freedom from William's manipulation. A family that wanted her for herself, not her bloodline, and the chance to use the Rothschild fortune for genuine good through medical innovation. The examination results had been delivered to William's office earlier that morning. The report confirmed what they already knew. They were legally and legitimately married. But it also contained another piece of information, one Madison had received privately from the doctor. Despite William's claims, Madison did not have the same heart condition that had killed her mother. That had been another lie, another manipulation. She was healthy, with no genetic heart issues to pass on. They would tell Lily later when the time was right. For now, they needed to face William in the hospital, to begin the complicated process of redefining their relationship with the man who'd brought them together through his machinations, never imagining they might find real connection in his carefully orchestrated chaos. As they reached the car, Madison paused, looking back at the hospital where Lily waited. "Do you think we're crazy?" she asked. "Falling in love in a day? Becoming a family overnight?" Jake thought about it, then shook his head. "No. I think when you've spent years building walls to protect yourself, it's not crazy to recognize the person who sees through them immediately. That's not rushing. It's finally finding what you've been waiting for." Madison squeezed his hand. "When did the night janitor get so wise?" "Probably around the same time the Ice Queen CEO learned to thaw," Jake replied with a smile. They drove toward the hospital where William waited, uncertain what the future held, but facing it together. 24 hours had changed everything, and somehow they both knew the next 24 would bring even greater challenges and deeper connections as they built something neither had dared hope for. A family forged not from obligation or expectation, but from choice. The boardroom of Rothschild Industries commanded the 40th floor, its glass walls offering panoramic views of Manhattan's financial district. Jake tried not to fidget as he and Madison took their seats at the massive oak table, facing 14 board members and a battalion of lawyers. William Rothschild presided from the head, a spider at the center of his web. The tension in the room was palpable. Board members shifted uncomfortably, aware they were witnessing not just a business meeting, but a family power struggle with billions at stake. Madison sat straight-backed in her chair, her posture perfect, despite the emotional turmoil of the past 24 hours. Jake admired her composure. She'd been trained since childhood for moments like this. "Now that we've confirmed the legitimacy of this union," William began, his voice silky with contempt, "shall we proceed with the transfer of assets?" "Finally," Madison muttered, just loud enough for Jake to hear. But Jake noticed her grandfather's smile, the predatory one that promised blood. "Of course, there are formalities." William nodded to his chief counsel, who produced a stack of documents. The marriage certificate, naturally, the medical certification, regrettably necessary. He paused, savoring the moment. And the background investigation into Mr. Morrison's actual employment history. Jake's blood froze. Beside him, Madison's hand clenched on the table. "I believe," William continued, "the board would be interested to know that Madison's new husband is not, in fact, a failed entrepreneur. He's a janitor in her own building." The room erupted. Board members shouted over each other while lawyers frantically checked documents. Patricia Chen remained calm, watching William with narrowed eyes. Two older board members seemed outraged, while several younger members exchanged glances that suggested this revelation wasn't entirely surprising. Madison stood, trembling with rage. That doesn't invalidate our marriage, doesn't it? William's voice cut through the chaos. You lied to the board, presented false credentials, married an employee, a clear violation of company ethics policies. He's not technically an employee of Rothschild Industries, Madison argued. He works for the building management company. William produced a contract with theatrical timing, a subsidiary we own, making Mr. Morrison subject to our non-fraternization clause. The marriage is not only inappropriate but potentially illegal from a corporate standpoint. Jake found his voice. We didn't know about the subsidiary relationship. Ignorance is not a defense. William rose from his chair, commanding the room's attention with his imposing figure. He approached them deliberately, his voice dropping to a dangerous calm. But I'm willing to offer a solution. The room quieted, all eyes on William. Annul the marriage immediately, and I'll release a modest settlement. Enough for your daughter's surgery, Mr. Morrison. William's gaze shifted to Madison. Madison keeps her position but forfeits the inheritance. Jake felt the weight of the proposal. The surgery for Lily, the whole reason he'd entered this arrangement, offered freely. He glanced at Madison, whose face had gone white with fury. Take it, Jake, William urged, his voice almost gentle. Your daughter gets her treatment. You return to your life without legal complications. Everyone wins. For a moment, Jake considered it. Lily's life had always been his priority. With her surgery guaranteed, did the rest matter? He opened his mouth to accept. No. Madison's voice was steel. One word spoken with such authority that the entire room stilled. Madison, Jake began, if it means Lily gets her surgery, we're not taking his offer, Madison cut him off, her eyes never leaving William's. I met your conditions. I married within the deadline. The terms of the trust are fulfilled. You committed fraud. William's mask finally slipped, showing real anger beneath. Did you think I wouldn't investigate? That I'd let you make a mockery of our family legacy? The only mockery, Madison shot back, is you trying to control my life like you controlled my father's. Like you drove my parents to— Enough! William's roar silenced the room. Your parents died because they were reckless, because they put emotion before logic, just as you're doing now. He turned to Jake, eyes glittering with malice. Tell me, Mr. Morrison, when Madison approached you with this scheme, and yes, I have security footage of your late-night encounter, did she mention the real reason I demanded she marry? Jake glanced at Madison, who'd gone pale. The inheritance is only part of it. William pulled out a medical file. Madison has a genetic condition, the same heart defect that killed her mother. Without children to pass on the bloodline, the entire Rothschild legacy dies with her. The room went deadly quiet. Jake stared at Madison, who looked like she'd been struck. That's not— She swayed, gripping the table. The doctors said I was clear. The doctors I paid said what I told them to say. William's voice was almost gentle now. I needed you focused on the company, not worrying about your health. But now, with you nearing 30, time is running out. You need children, Madison, heirs, and that requires a husband with suitable genetics. Jake watched understanding dawn on Madison's face. Years of monthly checkups. William's obsession with her personal life. His increased pressure about marriage. All of it suddenly making a terrible kind of sense. You're insane, Madison's voice cracked. You lied about my health to manipulate me into breeding. I protected you until you were ready. William gestured dismissively. Mr. Morrison's daughter has a heart condition. Clearly, his genetics are flawed. This marriage doesn't just threaten the company, it threatens our bloodline. Jake stood slowly, fury building in his chest. You're talking about our lives like we're livestock. You're talking about my empire like it's a game. William matched his stance. 40 generations of Rothschilds built this. I won't let it die because my granddaughter fell for the first sob story she heard. The words hung in the air, the accusation clear. Jake felt the eyes of the board on him, judging, assessing whether he was just an opportunist who'd capitalized on Madison's vulnerability. With all due respect, Mr. Rothschild, Jake said carefully, you fundamentally misunderstand the nature of cardiac genetics. William blinked, clearly not expecting this response. Restrictive cardiomyopathy can be genetic. Yes, Jake continued, drawing on his years of research. But it's often a spontaneous mutation, not an inherited trait. Lily's condition doesn't necessarily mean my genetics are flawed, as you put it. And if Madison does have a similar condition, modern medicine offers treatments that weren't available when her mother died. He turned to address the board directly. I developed software at MIT specifically designed to predict and manage pediatric cardiac events. The algorithms can identify warning signs days before a crisis, allowing for preventative intervention. With proper funding and development, it could reduce mortality rates by up to 60%. Several board members leaned forward with interest. Jake pressed his advantage. If Madison truly has this condition, something we'll need to verify with independent doctors, my research could help her as well as thousands of others. That's the real legacy worth protecting here. Not bloodlines or company control, but innovation that saves lives. Madison stared at Jake with something like awe, then turned to the board. "This is why I married him," she said simply. "Not because grandfather forced my hand, but because I found someone who sees problems as opportunities to help others. Someone who faced his daughter's illness, not with despair, but with determination to find solutions." She moved to stand beside Jake, their shoulders touching. "Yes, I lied about his job title, but everything else, his brilliance, his compassion, his dedication, that's all real. And yes, I initially approached him with a business proposition, but somewhere between then and now, it became something else entirely." Madison took a deep breath. "What began as a business arrangement has become something real. Jake reminds me of who I wanted to be before you convinced me that my only value was as a Rothschild heir. He sees me for who I am, not what I own or what I can provide." The declaration hung in the air, its sincerity unmistakable. Jake felt a swell of emotion as Madison continued. "You want to talk genetics, grandfather?" She pulled out her phone, projecting documents onto the boardroom screen. "Let's talk about Jake's real background. MIT dropout, not because he failed, but because his wife was pregnant. 3 patents in medical technology, IQ tested at 145. Is that suitable enough breeding stock for you?" William's face darkened. "You're making a fool of yourself." "No, you made a fool of me," Madison's voice broke. "Lying about my health, manipulating my life, treating me like a prize heifer. But it ends now, Dow." She turned to the board. "Call the vote. Recognize my marriage and release my inheritance, or I walk. I'll take my 40% stake, my knowledge of every deal and dirty secret, and start my own company. How long do you think Rothschild Industries survives without a Rothschild?" The room fell silent as the board members exchanged glances. Jake could almost see the calculations happening behind their eyes, weighing loyalty to William against the financial reality Madison had laid out. Patricia Chen spoke first. "I move to recognize the marriage and release the inheritance as specified in the trust." "Seconded," another board member added quickly. William's chief counsel cleared his throat. "Mr. Rothschild, perhaps we should consider—" "Take the vote," William snapped. The vote was swift, 9-5 in Madison's favor. William watched his carefully constructed plan crumble, his face aging years and moments. "You'll regret this," he told Madison quietly. "When emotion fails and reality sets in, when love isn't enough to pay medical bills or run an empire." "Maybe," Madison took Jake's hand, intertwining their fingers, "but I'd rather fail at something real than succeed at your lies." They left together, walking past the stunned board members and shell-shocked lawyers. In the elevator, Madison finally broke down, sobbing against Jake's chest. "A heart condition," she gasped between tears. "He lied about a heart condition. What else did he lie about? What if it's true? What if I'm dying like my mother?" "Hey," Jake held her tighter. "We'll get you checked. Real doctors, real tests. Whatever's wrong, we'll face it together." "Together?" She looked up, mascara streaking. "Jake, I meant what I said in there. I do love you. It happened so fast, but it's real." He cupped her face gently. "I love you too, and we'll figure this out. All of it." At Presbyterian Hospital, they found William in the intensive care unit, pale and diminished against the hospital sheets. Monitors beeped steadily, tracking the vital signs of a man who'd spent decades controlling others, now at the mercy of his own failing body. The neurologist met them outside his room. "Minor stroke," she explained. "We caught it quickly, so there should be minimal lasting damage. But he needs rest and reduced stress. Jake showed Madison the message. Her face went through a complex series of emotions: anger, concern, vindication, and finally resignation. "We should go to him," she said quietly. "Are you sure? After what he just did?" Madison nodded. "He's still my grandfather, the only family I have left." She paused. "Had left. Until you and Lily." At Presbyterian Hospital, they found William in the intensive care unit, pale and diminished against the hospital sheets. Monitors beeped steadily, tracking the vital signs of a man who'd spent decades controlling others, now at the mercy of his own failing body. The neurologist met them outside his room. "Minor stroke," she explained. "We caught it quickly, so there should be minimal lasting damage. But he needs rest and reduced stress." Madison nodded. "Can we see him?" "Briefly, he's conscious but weak." When they entered, William's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, surprise registered on his face at seeing both Madison and Jake. "Come to gloat?" His voice was thin but still carried its characteristic bite. "No," Madison said simply. "You're my grandfather. I came because I care." William's eyes shifted to Jake. "And you? Why are you here?" "I'm here for Madison," Jake answered honestly, "and because I think we need to clear the air." William gave a weak laugh that turned into a cough. "Always practical, aren't you, Morrison?" Even in victory. A nurse entered to check William's vitals, giving them a moment of respite from the conversation. Jake noticed a file on the bedside table, medical records, but not William's. Through the partially open folder, he could see Lily's name. When the nurse left, Jake picked up the folder. "Why do you have my daughter's medical records?" William's eyes narrowed. "Put that down." "No," Jake opened the file, scanning the contents. "These are detailed analyses of Lily's condition. Reports from specialists we never consulted. Treatment options we were never offered." He looked up sharply. "You've been monitoring her case for months." "Of course I have," William said irritably. "Did you think I'd let Madison marry someone without thorough vetting?" "This goes beyond vetting," Jake held up a document. "This is a research protocol for an experimental treatment only available in Switzerland. A treatment that could completely reverse Lily's condition." Madison moved to Jake's side, reading over his shoulder. "Grandfather, how long have you had this information?" William looked away. "Since shortly after you met at the fundraiser." 6 months, Jake realized. "You have known about a treatment that could save my daughter for 6 months, and you said nothing. It wasn't relevant until you became involved with Madison." "Relevant?" Jake's voice rose. "We're talking about a child's life. One of thousands dying every day," William countered. "Why should yours receive special treatment?" "She shouldn't," Jake agreed, surprising both William and Madison. "No child should. That's why I developed my software, to help them all. But you saw Lily as a pawn, just like you see Madison. A piece to move around your personal chessboard." William's expression changed, something vulnerable flickering across his face before he masked it. "You know nothing about my motivations." "Then explain them," Madison challenged. "Why the lies? Why the manipulation? Why treat your own granddaughter like breeding stock?" William was silent for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice held none of its usual commanding power. "Your mother had the same condition," he said to Madison. "Hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. It's genetic, passed down through our family for generations. My sister died from it at 19. My daughter, your mother, was lucky to reach 35. He shifted in the bed, wincing at the effort. "When you were born, I had you tested. The markers were there, dormant but present. I've spent your entire life preparing for the day they might activate." "By lying to me?" Madison's voice shook. "By making me think I was healthy?" "By making sure you lived without fear," William corrected. "Your mother knew her condition. She lived every day looking over her shoulder, waiting for the attack that would kill her. I wouldn't let that happen to you. So instead, you controlled every aspect of my life," Madison said bitterly. "Made sure I focused on the company, on the Rothschild legacy, because you knew it might be short." "I made sure you had purpose," William insisted, "and I searched for solutions. Every specialist, every new treatment, every research breakthrough, I followed them all. For you." Jake studied the old man, seeing him in a new light. "The Heart Research Division at Rothschild Industries. You didn't create it for profits. You created it for Madison. William didn't deny it. The Swiss treatment in Lily's file, it was developed with Rothschild funding, intended for Madison when the time came. His gaze shifted to Jake. When I discovered your software project through our background check, I had our research team review it. The potential applications for cardiac prediction are significant. You could have approached me directly, Jake said, funded the research properly, and let Madison know why I was suddenly interested in cardiac technology. William shook his head. I protected her from the truth. You didn't protect me, Madison said quietly. You imprisoned me in a life built on lies. She moved closer to the bed. I deserve to know about my health, to make my own choices, to find someone to love because I wanted to, not because you orchestrated it through ultimatums and manipulations. William's eyes closed briefly. Perhaps, but you are here now with him, and the result is the same. No, Madison corrected. The result is completely different, because now we'll face this honestly, together. No more secrets, no more lies. Jake placed his hand on Madison's shoulder. We should get you tested, find out exactly what we're dealing with. Independent doctors, Madison agreed. No one connected to Rothschild Industries. William opened his eyes. The Swiss team is the best. I can arrange. We'll handle it. Madison cut him off. This is our life now, grandfather. Mine and Jake's. You need to accept that. William studied them both, his expression unreadable. And if the tests confirm my diagnosis, then we'll face it, Jake said simply. Together. As they prepared to leave, William called Madison back. The board meeting, the vote, my lawyers will contest it. Madison paused at the door. On what grounds? Conflict of interest, emotional distress, take your pick. She sighed. Haven't we had enough battles for one day? This isn't spite, William insisted. It's practical. The company is vulnerable right now. Your sudden marriage, my condition. The sharks are circling. What do you suggest? Madison asked warily. A compromise. I withdraw my objection to your marriage. You maintain majority control of the company, but we present a united front to the board and shareholders. Jake understood what William was doing. Even from a hospital bed, he was maneuvering to maintain influence. But there was something else there too, a genuine concern for the company's stability. We'll consider it, Madison said, after we've had Lily's surgery scheduled and my health properly assessed. As they left the hospital, Jake felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger at William's manipulations warred with reluctant respect for the lengths he'd gone to protect both his granddaughter and his legacy. Most of all, he felt overwhelming gratitude that he and Madison had found each other through the tangled web of lies and half-truths. What are you thinking? Madison asked as they entered the car. That we need to see Lily, Jake said. Tell her what's happening. Madison nodded. All of it. As much as a 7-year-old can understand. That we got married because of your grandfather's ultimatum, but we're staying married because we fell in love. That she's getting her surgery. That she's gaining a mother. Madison's eyes filled with tears. Do you think she'll accept me? Jake smiled, remembering Lily's immediate connection to Madison. She already thinks you're the princess from the tower in my stories. You're halfway there. At St. Mary's Hospital, Lily was sitting up in bed, coloring a butterfly picture. Her face lit up when she saw them enter. Daddy, you brought Madison back. I did, sweetheart. Jake sat on the edge of her bed. We have some big news to tell you. Lily's eyes widened. Is it about my heart? Dr. Levin said I'm getting a special operation. That's part of it, Jake confirmed. But there's more. Madison and I, we got married yesterday. Lily looked between them, her expression shifting from surprise to delight. Really? Like for real married? With rings and everything? Madison held up her left hand, showing the simple gold band. Really married. So you're my mom now? Lilo asked directly. Madison's breath caught. Would you like that? Lily considered this with the seriousness only a child could muster. My old mom didn't want to stay because I was sick. She said it was too hard. Will you stay even if I'm still sick after the operation? Oh, sweetheart. Madison moved to the other side of the bed, taking Lily's small hand. I will stay no matter what. Sick or well, easy or hard. That's what real moms do. Lily nodded, apparently satisfied with this answer. Good, because I already decided you're the princess from Daddy's stories, and princesses keep their promises. Jake felt his throat tighten with emotion. That's right, Lilybug. And we have more good news. Dr. Levin has scheduled your surgery for next week. And after that, when you're recovered enough, we'll all go home together. To the tower? Lily asked excitedly. Madison laughed. For now, but maybe someday we'll find a house with a garden for real butterflies, not just the ones in books. As Lily chattered about butterfly gardens and princess rooms, Jake watched Madison transform before his eyes. The corporate armor fell away completely, replaced by genuine warmth and engagement. She showed Lily pictures of butterfly species on her phone, promised to bring her collection of rare butterfly books, and listened intently to Lily's detailed explanation of her coloring technique. They were interrupted by a nurse bringing Lily's medication. While Lily was distracted, Jake pulled Madison aside. "You're a natural with her," he said softly. Madison looked surprised. "Really? I've never spent much time with children." William didn't exactly encourage family visits or maternal instincts. "Well, you had me fooled. Lily's completely smitten." "The feeling is mutual," Madison admitted. "She's extraordinary, Jake, so brave and bright. How could anyone walk away from her?" Jake thought of Sarah, of her tearful goodbye, and the note that said simply, "I can't watch her die." He'd been angry for so long, but now he mostly felt pity. Sarah had missed the chance to know the remarkable person their daughter was becoming. "Not everyone has your strength," he said simply. Madison's phone buzzed with a message from Patricia Chen. "Board emergency meeting called for tomorrow. William's lawyers moving to contest the vote. Need to prepare." Jake read the message over her shoulder. So much for William's United Front proposal. "He's playing both sides," Madison sighed. "Some things never change." "What do you want to do?" Madison considered. "We face it head on, together. But first, we need to know exactly what we're dealing with, medically and legally." They spent the evening making arrangements. Independent cardiologist for Madison, the Swiss specialist for Lily, and legal counsel to review the trust documents and marriage implications. Through it all, they worked as a team, their complementary skills creating a formidable partnership. By morning, they had a plan. They would attend the emergency board meeting, present a unified vision for the company focused on expanding the medical technology division with Jake's software as the centerpiece, and address William's manipulation directly. The boardroom was tense when they arrived, William noticeably absent, but his presence felt through the battery of lawyers occupying one end of the table. Patricia Chen greeted them with a warm handshake and a whispered warning. "William's legal team is arguing. The marriage fails to meet the trust's legitimate union requirement due to Jake's employment status." Madison nodded, unsurprised. "Then we'll have to show them just how legitimate it is." When the meeting was called to order, William's chief counsel spoke first, laying out a dry legal argument about conflicts of interest and corporate ethics violations. The board listened with varying degrees of attention, most having already decided where they stood. When it was Madison's turn to speak, she didn't bother with legal counter-arguments. Instead, she projected a series of images onto the main screen. Lily in her hospital bed, Jake's cardiac prediction algorithms, preliminary market analyses for the technology. "Yesterday, my grandfather tried to frame this situation as a choice between emotion and business," she began, "as if the two must always be in conflict. But the most successful business decisions I've made have always aligned both." She advanced a slide showing the potential market for pediatric cardiac prediction software. Jake Morrison's technology represents a $2.3 billion market opportunity over the next 5 years. But more importantly, it represents thousands of lives saved, children who might otherwise die from undetected cardiac events. The board member sat straighter, financial projections always capturing their attention. "My marriage to Jake wasn't planned as a business merger," Madison continued, "but it has become one of the most valuable acquisitions Rothschild Industries could make. His intellectual property, combined with our resources and market position, creates a synergy that none of our competitors can match." Jake took over seamlessly, explaining the technical aspects of his software and how it could be integrated into Rothschild's existing medical platforms. He spoke with the confidence of someone who'd spent years immersed in the subject, transforming from the hesitant janitor into the brilliant MIT researcher he'd once been. The algorithm doesn't just predict cardiac events, he explained. It creates personalized treatment protocols based on the individual patient's genetic profile and medical history. For children like my daughter Lily, this means the difference between generalized care and precisely targeted interventions. As he spoke, Jake noticed several board members taking detailed notes. Even Williams' lawyers seemed grudgingly impressed. We're presenting this partnership, both personal and professional, as the future of Rothschild Industries, Madison concluded. My grandfather built this company on innovation and calculated risk. Jake and I are offering you both, wrapped in a compelling human story that our marketing department couldn't have crafted better themselves. She smiled, the expression both genuine and strategic. After all, what sounds better in the annual report? Rothschild heiress follows grandfather's demands to marry for money. Or Rothschild Industries partners with groundbreaking medical researcher to save children's lives. A ripple of appreciative laughter moved through the room. Even Patricia Chen couldn't suppress a smile. The vote, when it came, was decisive. 12-2 in favor of upholding the previous day's decision and recognizing the marriage as legitimate under the terms of the trust. Williams' lawyers departed with tight faces and careful promises to review options. As the board members filed out, offering congratulations and business cards to Jake, Patricia approached them. "Well played," she said quietly. "William would be proud if he weren't so furious." "How is he?" Madison asked. "Stable, demanding updates every hour, terrorizing the hospital staff." Patricia smiled fondly. "So, normal. We'll visit him after Lily's pre-surgical consultation," Jake promised. Patricia studied them both. "You know, when William first told me about his marriage ultimatum, I thought it was just another of his control tactics. But seeing you two together," she shook her head in wonder. "Sometimes even manipulative old men get lucky." The week that followed was a whirlwind of medical appointments, legal meetings, and preparations for Lily's surgery. Madison's independent cardiologist confirmed what they'd begun to suspect. While she did carry the genetic markers for hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, her condition was currently stable with no signs of active disease. With proper monitoring and the preventative protocols Jake's software helped develop, she could live a normal lifespan. William, when informed of the diagnosis, seemed to deflate with relief before quickly covering it with his usual gruffness. "Well, of course, I've been monitoring your condition for years. Did you think I'd leave something like that to chance?" He remained in the hospital, his recovery slower than expected due to his age and stubborn refusal to fully cooperate with the rehabilitation program. During one visit, when Madison stepped out to take a business call, William fixed Jake with a penetrating stare. "You truly love her," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Jake answered simply. William nodded once. "Good. She deserves that." He paused, seeming to struggle with his next words. "I had it once, with her grandmother, before the business, before the empire became everything." Jake said nothing, sensing the rare moment of vulnerability shouldn't be interrupted. "I lost my son, Madison's father, to the same heart condition that took his mother," William continued quietly. "By then, I'd already built walls so high I couldn't reach him even when I tried. Don't make my mistakes, Morrison." "I won't," Jake promised, understanding now the source of William's obsession with control, with legacy, with Madison's health. Fear disguised as power, loss masked as determination. The day of Lily's surgery arrived with tense anticipation. The procedure would take 8 hours with success not guaranteed. The Swiss specialist William had arranged worked alongside Dr. Levin, creating a medical dream team that gave Lily the best possible chance. As Lily was wheeled into surgery, her new family stood united. The procedure would take 8 hours, and success wasn't guaranteed. "See you when I wake up," she told them, brave to the last. "We'll be right here," Madison promised, gripping Jake's hand. As the doors closed behind their daughter, Jake pulled his wife close. They'd built a family in a day, found love in desperation, created truth from lies. Now came the hardest part, waiting to see if their miracle would continue. But together they could face anything, even time, especially time. When the chief surgeon finally emerged, his face gave nothing away until he reached them. Then he smiled, the expression transforming his severe features. The procedure was successful. We were able to complete the full repair with minimal complications. Lily's prognosis is excellent. Madison's legs buckled, and Jake caught her, his own relief making him lightheaded. They held each other, crying openly as the tension of the past week, the past years, released in a flood of emotion. When they were finally allowed to see Lily in recovery, she was pale but peaceful. The steady beep of the monitors, a reassuring soundtrack to her healing. They took turns sitting with her through the night, neither willing to leave, even when the nurses offered to watch over her. In the small hours of the morning, with Madison dozing in a chair beside Lily's bed, Jake received a text message from an unknown number. My office, 9 a.m. tomorrow. Bring the software documentation. WR. The next morning, Jake met William in his hospital room, which the old man had transformed into a makeshift office complete with laptops, legal pads, and a harried assistant managing calls. The surgery was successful, William stated without preamble. Yes, Lily's recovery is proceeding well. William nodded. Good. Now about your software. He gestured to the assistant, who produced a thick folder. I've had our legal team prepare provisional patents for the expanded applications we discussed. The cardiac prediction algorithm, yes, but also adaptations for other genetic conditions with similar presentation patterns. Jake blinked, surprised by the thoroughness. You've been busy for someone recovering from a stroke. A minor stroke, William corrected irritably. And idle hands are the devil's workshop. They spent the next hour reviewing the patent applications and development timeline William had created. The old man's business acumen was impressive, his understanding of the medical technology market surprisingly current. Why are you doing this? Jake finally asked. William looked annoyed at the interruption. Isn't it obvious? The company needs this technology. You need resources to develop it properly. Simple business alignment. No, Jake shook his head. This goes beyond business. You're fast-tracking everything, pulling strings I didn't even know existed. Why? William was silent for a long moment. Because time is precious, he said finally. Because I've wasted too much of it on control instead of connection. Because my granddaughter loves you, and you make her happy in a way money and power never could. He shuffled the papers on his lap, uncomfortable with the admission. And because I'd like to see some good come from all this. A legacy beyond buildings and bank accounts. Jake understood then that this was William's version of an apology, not in words but in actions. Support for Jake's work, for Lily's health, for Madison's happiness. The only way the proud old man knew how to show he cared. Thank you, Jake said simply. William harumphed. Don't thank me yet. I'm still going to be a royal pain in your ass at board meetings. Just because I'm accepting this situation doesn't mean I've gone soft. Jake smiled. I wouldn't expect anything less. 6 months later, Lily ran through Central Park, chasing butterflies with the energy of a healthy child. Her recovery had been remarkable, her body responding to the treatment as if making up for lost time. The scar on her chest was already fading, a small price for the vibrant life that had been returned to her. Jake watched from a park bench, Madison beside him with her tablet open to quarterly projections for the newly established Rothschild Morrison Medical Technologies division. Even on a Saturday, she couldn't completely disconnect, but she'd learned to balance work with family in ways that would have been unimaginable a year ago. The FDA fast-tracked approval, she informed him, excitement in her voice. The pediatric version of your software will be available to hospitals nationwide by Christmas. Jake smiled, watching Lily leap for a monarch butterfly just beyond her reach. William's connections came through. Don't tell him that. His ego's already insufferable since the rehabilitation center declared him their most improved patient. William had recovered enough to return home. Though he'd reluctantly accepted a reduced role at the company, he now served as chairman emeritus, focusing on strategic vision while Madison handled day-to-day operations. Their relationship remained complicated, but had found a new equilibrium based on mutual respect, if not always agreement. To everyone's surprise, William had developed a special bond with Lily, who was utterly unintimidated by his gruff manner. She visited him regularly, bringing butterfly drawings and chattering about school. He pretended to be merely tolerating these visits, but the rare, genuine smile that appeared when Lily hugged him goodbye told a different story. Look what grandfather sent this morning, Madison said, pulling a package from her bag. Inside was a first edition book on rare butterflies, with a note in William's precise handwriting. Perhaps I was wrong about some things. Give Lily my best. Jake shook his head in wonder. Not quite an apology, but close. For William, it's practically a tearful confession, Madison agreed. As Lily ran back to them, cheeks flushed with healthy color, Jake felt a profound sense of gratitude. 1 year ago, he'd been pushing a mop across marble floors, watching his daughter fade away, his dreams locked in patents he couldn't develop. Now Lily was thriving. His software was saving lives, and he'd found love with a woman who matched him in determination and courage. "Daddy! Mom! I saw a Queen Alexandra's bird wing!" Lily exclaimed, collapsing dramatically onto the grass before them, just like in Grandfather's book. In Manhattan? Jake raised an eyebrow. I think that might have been a regular swallowtail, sweetheart. Queen Alexandras are only found in Papua New Guinea. Maybe it was on vacation, Lily suggested with 7-year-old logic. Like we're going to be for Christmas. Madison laughed. She's got you there. The Switzerland trip is confirmed. The medical team wants to do Lily's 6-month follow-up, and I thought we could make it a family vacation afterward. And grandfather might come too, Lily added. He said he needs to check on his Zurich office anyway. Jake exchanged a glance with Madison. William inviting himself on their family vacation was exactly the kind of boundary crossing they'd come to expect. Yet somehow it felt right. The complicated family they'd built, finding its own unique balance. As they walked home through the park, Lily skipping ahead to examine every flower and insect, Madison slipped her hand into Jake's. I had a meeting with Dr. Levinson yesterday, she said casually. My cardiac function remains completely normal. He says there's no medical reason we couldn't consider expanding our family if we wanted to. Jake squeezed her hand. Is that something you want? I think so, Madison admitted. Not because of bloodlines or legacy or any of William's obsessions, but because what we've built together, it's worth growing. Jake thought about it, a sibling for Lily, another child to love, to teach, to watch, discover the world. A family created not from obligation, but from choice. I'd like that, he said softly. Madison smiled, the expression still rare enough to feel like a gift. Good, because Rothschild Industries just received a major contract proposal from Singapore that is going to require both our attention for the next few months. We might need to divide and conquer. And there it was, the business crisis William had warned would always be part of their lives. But now they faced it together, partners in every sense. Singapore, huh? Jake grinned. Do they have butterflies there? Some of the rarest in the world, Madison confirmed. Lily will be thrilled. As if hearing her name, Lily turned back to them. Are you talking about me? Ways, Jake assured her. We're just making plans for the future. Our future, Madison added, the words still carrying a sense of wonder. Ahead of them, Manhattan's skyline gleamed in the afternoon sun, the Rothschild Tower standing tall among its neighbors. Once, Jake had looked up at that building and seen only wealth and power beyond his reach. Now he saw it as just a building, impressive, yes, but nothing compared to the true legacy they were building together. A legacy of healing, of innovation, of family forged through choice rather than obligation. A legacy that had begun with a desperate question in a marble lobby at midnight. Will you marry me for one day? The answer, as it turned out, was forever.